You didn't plan for this. When you started getting serious about money, cutting expenses, investing consistently, building the system, you weren't thinking about what it would do to your friendships. You were thinking about your future, about not being broke at 50, about not living paycheck to paycheck for the rest of your life. And then it worked. And now you're sitting at a dinner table with people you've known for 10 years, and someone suggests splitting the bill evenly, and you notice you're the only one who doesn't flinch. You're the only one who didn't quietly calculate whether you could afford the entree before ordering. You're the only one who isn't going home to quietly stress about that charge hitting the account. And you feel something you didn't expect to feel. Not pride, not superiority, loneliness. That's what this video is about. Not the money, the distance that money creates, even between people who genuinely love each other, and what you actually do about it. Nobody announces it. That's the thing. There's no moment where you sit your friends down and say, "Hey, I've been quietly building wealth for the last 4 years, and I need you all to know things are different now." It doesn't work like that. It happens in increments so small that by the time anyone notices, including you, the gap is already wide. It's the first time you upgrade your apartment and nobody else does. The first time you say yes to a trip abroad without checking your bank account first. The first time a friend asks to borrow money and the amount they need is something you have sitting in a checking account doing nothing. It's the first time you genuinely cannot relate to the financial stress being described at the table. Not because you've forgotten what it felt like, but because the specific anxiety of not having enough is no longer your daily reality. And here's what makes it complicated. Your friends didn't do anything wrong. They're not lazy. They're not irresponsible. Most of them are working just as hard as you, sometimes harder. But they didn't have the same information, or the same timing, or the same obsessive commitment to a financial system that you quietly ran in the background of your life for years. The gap isn't about character, it's about compounding, and compounding is ruthlessly indifferent to fairness. Let's be specific, because this isn't abstract. It shows up in real, recurring, uncomfortable situations that you either navigate well or handle badly. Situation 1. The group dinner. This is the most frequent battlefield. Someone suggests a restaurant that's slightly above what the group can comfortably afford. Everyone looks at the menu. Orders are placed. The bill comes. Someone suggests splitting evenly, and you watch the table do a collective calculation about whether tonight was worth it. You have 2 bad options and 1 good one. Bad option 1, you pay more than your share without saying anything and quietly build resentment. Bad option 2, you make a scene about splitting fairly and make everyone feel judged. Good option, you read the room, you cover the difference quietly, and you don't make the moment about money. You do this because you can, not because you're keeping score. Situation 2, the loan request. A friend, a real friend, someone you care about, comes to you, not to a bank, to you, because they know you have it. And the amount they need is genuinely not significant to your financial position, but it is everything to them. This situation will test you, not because of the money, because of what lending money to a friend actually does to a friendship. We'll come back to this in detail. Situation 3, the lifestyle conversation. You mention something casually, a weekend trip, a purchase, a decision, and you watch the energy shift, not hostility, something quieter than that. A brief silence, a subject change, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Your friends are happy for you, they genuinely are, but human beings are wired for comparison, and proximity to someone doing better surfaces feelings that have nothing to do with you personally and everything to do with their own internal relationship with money. Situation 4, the unsolicited advice trap. You see a friend making a financial decision that you know is going to cost them. You've been in that exact situation. You know what comes next, and you want to say something. You want to share what you learned. You want to help. And if you're not careful, what comes out sounds like a lecture. And what they hear is judgment. And what the friendship loses is safety. Situation 5, the growing silence around money. Over time, your friends stop talking about their financial lives around you, not because they're ashamed, though some are, but because the conversation no longer feels equal. They're talking about problems you can no longer fully inhabit, and they know it, and you know it, and everyone pretends the elephant isn't in the room. These 5 situations will repeat. The question is never whether they'll happen, it's whether you've thought about them enough to handle them with grace. Here's something important to sit with. You have been on the other side of this table. There was a version of you, not that long ago, who had a friend doing better financially. And you remember what that felt like. Maybe it was subtle envy dressed up as mild irritation. Maybe it was the specific discomfort of watching someone order without looking at the price while you quietly did the math. Maybe it was the exhausting performance of pretending you were fine when the conversation turned to money. You lived that, which means you have a resource that most wealthy people don't: memory. You remember what financial stress actually feels like from the inside, not as an abstraction, as a lived experience. The 3 a.m. anxiety, the decision paralysis around small purchases, the quiet shame of not being able to participate in things that everyone else treats as normal. That memory is not a burden, it's a compass. It tells you exactly how to treat the people in your life who are still in that place. Not with pity. Pity is condescending, and people feel it immediately. Not with advice they didn't ask for. Not with performative generosity that makes the wealth gap the centerpiece of every interaction. With normalcy. With the dignity of being treated like an equal human being, not a financial project. The best thing wealth can do for your friendships is become invisible in how you treat people. The worst thing it can do is become the loudest thing in the room. We need to spend real time here because this is where the most friendships break. A friend asks to borrow money, real money, and you're sitting across from someone you've known for 15 years, and the amount is sitting in your savings account, and saying no feels cruel, and saying yes feels complicated, and you don't know what the right answer is. Here are the rules. Not suggestions, rules, based on what actually preserves both the money and the relationship. Rule 1. Never lend money you emotionally need back. If the repayment is required for your financial plan, if the absence of that money changes your position, don't lend it. Because the moment repayment is delayed, and it will be delayed, you will have feelings about it. And those feelings will damage the friendship regardless of whether the money eventually comes back. Rule 2. If you decide to help, decide mentally that it's a gift. Give what you can genuinely afford to give. Not lend, give. If it comes back, that's wonderful. If it doesn't, you already processed the loss before the transaction happened. This is the only way to help someone financially without weaponizing the debt against the relationship. Rule 3. Never make the transaction public in the friend group. The moment other people know you lent money to someone, the dynamic of the entire group shifts. The borrower loses face. The other members wonder if you'd do the same for them. The whole ecosystem becomes transactional. What happens between you and one friend stays there. Rule 4. Don't make it a pattern. If someone comes to you repeatedly, you are not helping them. You are enabling a cycle and removing the pressure that would otherwise push them toward real financial change. You can love someone and refuse to be their bank. Those two things are not in conflict. The hardest part of financial growth is learning that the generosity you can afford is not the same as the generosity you should provide. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're structural. They're what makes long-term relationships survivable. Let's be honest about something that most people in this situation don't want to say out loud. Not all of these friendships are going to make it. Not because of conflict. Not because of betrayal, but because people grow in different directions. And money is one of the most powerful accelerators of that divergence. Values shift. Priorities shift. What you find interesting at $15,000 in your investment account is simply different from what you find interesting at $400,000. The conversations that used to sustain the friendship start to feel like they're missing something. This is not failure. This is life. The friendships that survive the wealth gap share a few specific qualities. They are built on something deeper than shared financial circumstances. Shared history, shared values, genuine mutual affection that exists independently of what anyone earns. In these friendships, the money is occasionally visible, but never the point. Both people feel safe enough to be honest. Neither person is performing. These friendships are worth fighting for. Worth the awkward conversations, worth the extra effort to show up in ways that feel equal even when the financial reality isn't. The friendships that don't survive were often more fragile than you realized, built more on proximity and shared struggle than on genuine connection. And the wealth didn't destroy them, it just revealed what was always true. Let them go with gratitude for what they were. Don't hold people hostage to a dynamic that no longer serves either of you. So, what does it actually look like to handle this with integrity? You stay humble, not performatively, not with false modesty that insults everyone's intelligence, but genuinely. You remember where you came from. You remember the version of yourself that was stressed about $200. You let that memory inform how you see the people still living it. You lead with curiosity, not advice. When a friend is making a financial decision you disagree with, you ask questions before you offer opinions. And sometimes, after the questions, you realize the opinion wasn't needed. You let people ask. You don't push information on anyone who didn't come looking for it. But when someone comes to you, genuinely curious about how you got here, what changed, what you did differently, you tell them the truth. All of it. Without ego, because information shared freely is how the people you love start closing the gap themselves. You pay when you can, quietly, without making it a moment. You absorb the cost of inclusion without broadcasting it. You make the dinner possible, the trip accessible, the experience available, and then you move on. No receipts, no reminders, no invisible scoreboard, and you find or build a second circle. People who are in a similar financial position, thinking about similar problems, moving at a similar pace, not to replace the old friendships, to supplement them, because some conversations need to happen with people who can fully inhabit them with you.